First thing foremost, we have a tradition at Informatica that one of our executives started, which is to take a selfie picture. So, I want everybody to do this sign, and what this means is shaka. I grew up in Hawaii, and this means hello. So in 3, 2, 1, I would like for you, behind me, to do a shaka sign. So we'll do this. And let me make sure I got everybody. All right. In 3, 2, 1. Okay. I'm going to send it to you guys. Okay, thank you. What's more exciting than data? Honestly, I can name a lot of different things, but we're going to be talking about data today. Now, we talked about the age of engagement. We talked about the data-ready enterprise. We also know that data has to be governed as a business asset or managed as a business asset. How many of you have heard about the term data governance? Okay. How many of you have a data governance program in your organizations today? Okay. So about 3% of the hands. Next question. How many of your organizations are interested in implementing data governance? So about 10%. All right. Let me talk about data governance today. We're going to talk about what it is, what it's not, how technology helps people execute the processes and the policies to manage data as an asset in your data-ready enterprise. Why data governance? Well, 8 years ago when I joined Informatica, my first job was to help promote the concepts of data governance. Now, being that I came out of the banking industry and spent the majority of the 20 years in my software career working for data technology vendors, this term wasn't necessarily that exciting for me. The question was, what is it? Why is it needed? Who needs it? But to really understand data governance and the principles and the value that it delivers, because keep in mind, data governance is not software. Software technology has nothing to do with that. There is a role, however, behind that. But when you have your consumers, your business people, your employees asking, where do I find the information that I need? Because over the years, we have so many systems and applications that we've invested in. Companies that have built data warehouses and data marts and data hubs, cloud, on-premise. But many business folks don't know where they can find the information, right? Who can I ask if I have a question? If I have a question about customer data, who do I go to? Do I go to marketing? Do I go to sales? Do I go to IT? What does it mean? Sometimes the data that's available to the business has no description, and therefore when you have a new employee coming to the company, you may not know what it means. Where is that data used? How is it used? Is this all of my data? We talk about big data. Guess what, folks? Big data is not new. There's been a lot of data in the world and in lives. But the question is it all my data? Is it all the data that I have to leverage and rely or secure? Where did it all come from? Can you actually explain to your regulators in financial services, for example, how you actually calculated risk? Where did the data come from? What systems? And can you actually trust it? At the end of the day, if you don't know what data that you're getting, you don't know who to go to for answers, and you don't know what it means, can you actually trust it? Now, these are all the questions that people are asking about their data. And data governance has some definitions out there. You can Google it. The definition of data governance, this is a definition that I actually came up with 8 years ago. That it's a practice of managing data as a corporate asset across the enterprise. It involves processes, policies, standards, technology, and most importantly, people across the organization to ensure the availability of accurate, consistent, and timely data for better decision-making and improved business processes. Pretty simple, right? Now, I apologize for this chart, a little busy, but we actually did a survey to over 32 global financial institutions 1 month ago when we asked, what's actually driving your investment in data governance? And the number one category was because of the regulatory requirements in financial services. But outside of financial services, you may be investing in a new CRM system or new analytic application, or you might just need to improve the quality of the data to run your business. There are many reasons why data governance is important, but in certain industries, it's more important because of a regulatory driver. Now, again, these slides will be made available to everyone, so you won't need to go into the details of it, especially for the folks in the back who can't see. But let me describe what you're looking at. Data governance practices have different steps of maturity. Some organizations start down here, where data governance is not something that people are really talking about. And more importantly, they're not really doing it in the business side, but it's typically people in IT who are close to the systems and applications that either create your data or house your data or deliver your data. They see the problems with the data. And so what they want to do is they want to put together some practices, repeatable processes to fix the data, to deliver it downstream to the systems and applications and the people that need it. But they're not really calling it data governance. Now, as you start thinking about methods and processes to fix and improve the quality of your data, for example, you then go into the second stage, which is now let's start putting together some repeatable processes. Let's have some standard processes in place to profile data, to define the rules to fix the data, and it becomes a fabric or a condition of your day-to-day operations. But in level 2, it's still mainly IT who's doing this, not necessarily business. Level 3 is when you start involving senior management within IT, but now you're getting your business stakeholders involved. Your business stakeholders are saying, you know, Peter, I really need a single view of customer, and I need to have it because of these reasons. And they get together with their IT counterparts, and they start defining the requirements for their data, and there's collaboration happening between business and IT, but it's not at your CEO or CIO level. This is happening between departments. No real defined roles or responsibilities yet, right? People who really need the data or know where the data is, they're coming together and they're having conversation and they're defining requirements. But then eventually you become more mature in your program, in your roles and definitions, and in your processes. And this is where you start getting into a level 4, where you have a formal data governance structure or an organization in place. You have people who have the role of a data steward, and I'll talk about these roles. You have a data governance committee, but you don't have what the 5th layer typically has, and this is an organization that cuts across business and IT, managed by a person with the title of Chief Data Officer. How many of you or your organizations have a Chief Data Officer today? Okay, 1. Let me give you some comparison. I asked this question across every region in the world. In North America, I would say data governance was more mature than other regions, but in particular in 2 industries. 1, pharmaceutical, and 2, in financial services. The reason being is both industries are very highly regulated, one for delivering new drugs into market, the other for managing money in the markets. The Chief Data Officer role is becoming more and more popular, not because it's popular and it's a cool thing to do, it's because these organizations need accountability and they need an organization that can be responsible for defining the processes, implementing the policies, and setting the standards around data as an asset. So, as you start going through your journey, most organizations won't try to start and become a level 5. It doesn't happen. What happens is you will get into sort of a level 2 or 3, meaning you know what data that you need, you've defined requirements, you have organizations that are responsible for the management of data, you're now agreeing upon what the data should mean and how the data quality levels should be. Without even calling it data governance, people, That is data governance in the most basic format. Okay. There are, however, conditions to make data governance effective. Like any other investment, the first thing you have to have is a business case. Why are you doing it? If you don't know why you're doing it and it doesn't actually have some value at the end of the process, don't waste your time. But if you are looking at making an investment in data governance, hiring experts to build a program and define the processes, identify a business case. What problem are you trying to solve? And I'll talk about at the end, don't try to solve world hunger. It doesn't happen. Solve small problems at a time as you go down your journey. I'll explain why. But you have to have a business case and a vision. Why is this important? One example would be, we need high quality data to comply with industry regulations. That could be your mission statement. And therefore, what you're going to look at is addressing the quality requirements for the data that you use for regulatory compliance. So it all depends on your business needs, but define your vision, define the business case. The business case should say, if I don't have the data that I need, what is the cost to my business? Or, on the positive side, if I have the data that I need, how much more can I grow the business? Right? So there has to be a business justification behind any investment, but more importantly, in data governance. And I'll explain why at the end, because I have some survey results of very large companies that have gone through their data governance journey, and they still don't see the value. And one of the real reasons is because they didn't really define a business case in the beginning. People, data governance, I'll make a statement. Data governance is not something that IT can drive alone. Let me repeat that. Data governance is something that IT cannot drive alone. Data governance has to be driven by both IT and business. In some cases, we're hearing that data governance really should be a business initiative. If only IT is talking about data governance, it's going to fail. You have to have a conversation with your business stakeholders as to what you may be seeing with the data in your organizations. But have that conversation with your business sponsors and your business partners to understand, if we were to improve the data, or more importantly, what data do you need? Let's have a conversation. People are important. IT can't do it alone. And as you mature in your process, the roles and responsibilities of the stakeholders and the participants are also important. Tools and architecture. So our salespeople used to hate me when I used to say this. They'd bring me into a meeting with a potential customer, and we're trying to sell them software. And I look at them, and I said, okay, so where are you with data governance? I said, well, we're looking at implementing a program. And we're saying, hey, you should buy our software because it's going to help you govern your data. Well, tools by themselves can't really help. You have to have the people, processes, and the policies in place because the technology helps automate the enforcement of the policies and execute the processes. The tools do not do it for you. Those things have to be in place before you adopt any technology. You do want to, however, invest in solutions that allows you, again, to do those things faster, better, and cheaper. That's what technology is all about. The policies have to be defined by the business, not IT. Risk, compliance, sales, marketing needs to say, this is the data that I need, how we're going to use it, and why it's important. If IT goes to business to say, I think you need this data because I think this is important to you, it's not going to work. Business has to define the policies. Organizations have to be aligned around those policies. What I mean by this is that if you have customer data that sales and marketing and support, customer support relies on, what about the finance folks? What about the fraud investigation and the risk management side? They also need that data. They're not going to be governing their own versions of the data. There has to be a common understanding of what data needs are used across the business and how the business needs to receive it. Change management, measurement. When things change, you have to be ready to adjust and adapt. And this is why having policies and processes are important, because when things do change, the market changes, your systems change, your organization changes, you get acquired. Things can happen. And as you are implementing your data governance processes, define what your measurements for success are. Set a goal. The goal should be, if we improve the quality of our data by 10%, we believe it will have a business impact of 5% on revenue. Measure it, monitor it. All right? There is one thing that's not here. Communicate it. Don't just invest in something and say, oh, we're doing it. You have to communicate the progress of your activities, whether you succeeded or you failed. But communicate what you're doing, and there are some tools and capabilities that I would recommend looking at to do that. Data governance is a business function, as I mentioned. It's not an IT responsibility. It's no different than corporate finance or HR, sales, legal, compliance. This is when you start hitting the level 4 and 5 stages. It should be treated and looked upon as a business function. From an organizational standpoint, your executive sponsors. Number one, someone asked me, Peter, if we don't have support from our CEO and CFO and our chief marketing officer, will we fail? You won't necessarily fail, but you better ensure that if they ask, why are we investing in this, that there's an explanation, there's a business case ready to go. But eventually, business executives need to support these investments, because it's not just about buying new software or hiring smart people. It's about changing the culture of the organization. When we were having the panel earlier yesterday, I asked one of the participants, is data seen as something that the business owns? Right? Or IT? In a data governance environment, the culture has to be that business owns the data, not IT. IT's job is to help deliver the data that business needs. But business is responsible for what data is important for the business, why it's important, how they're going to use it. The business departments own their data. They may not own the systems and applications that create or import the data, but they own the data. That's a cultural shift that has to happen. And that comes from the top. What also comes from the top? Money. Money to fund these initiatives. It also removes the barriers so that business isn't blaming IT every time bad data gets delivered. If business is blaming IT that bad data was delivered, it's not IT's fault, because IT's job is to help deliver what business needs. Either the business wasn't clear as to what they needed, or there was no funding in technology to help IT deliver what they need. Right? So we have to keep that in mind. The steering committee, this is where you start having more mature organization models. It's not just IT, it's not just business, it's now at the senior executive level where they are talking about data as important as the cash in their bank. That's how important data is to organizations today. Okay. And when you start looking at stewards and data stewards and what they are and what they mean, data stewards are nothing more than people in the organization that know something about the data that your business needs. This could be a marketing analyst, this could be a risk analyst. These are typically people who are already employed by the company. And early on, data stewards, or the stewardship of data, is really a part-time responsibility of these individuals. As they mature in their practice, data stewardship becomes a full-time job. No longer is that marketing analyst going to be a marketing analyst. He or she will be the data steward for marketing data. That's how the organization model shifts. Because their role is to help define and answer those questions. If someone asks, what data do we get from marketing? How does marketing use the data that we need? Remember those questions early on? A data steward in marketing would be identified. That person's name is Subrata. Subrata is the marketing data steward for this organization. Any questions should go to him. Any definitions of marketing data he owns, and he needs to publish that. Okay. Now, what the question in one of the survey that we did was, what are the most relevant competencies related to your data governance program? So the question really means, what's important when you start looking at data governance? The number one driver as to why data governance becomes an interesting topic is when organizations see and suffer from poor quality data. That's the number one driver in most data governance initiatives. I have bad data, I need to do something about it. Who do we talk to? What do we need to do with the data so that we get the good data that we need? And what investments do we need to make? So in the survey that we did, data quality was number one, 74%. Master data management was second. Analytics and reporting, right? Metadata management, reference data management, country codes, ISO currency codes, etc. Data security and privacy. These are all the aspects around data governance that organizations basically are saying, these are the things that we have to do. Which of the following do you find most challenging relative to your data governance program? Number one, and this is coming from financial services, so it's a little biased. Metadata management. What this means is I need to explain where my data is, I need to explain what data I have and how we're using it to somebody who's asking these questions, and that's typically your regulators in the financial services industry. The second most challenging thing was data quality management. Now, data quality management is becoming more and more problematic for organizations because the demand for data is going up, the number of systems and applications and devices that create data is going up. What's not going up? Funding to support the data needs of the organization. And one of the reasons why also organizations suffer from poor quality data is because the methods and the technology that exists in many companies today cannot deal with the speed and demand of data that the business is consuming. It just doesn't work. So you need to invest in technology that can help automate some of these processes. So what does Informatica actually do for data governance? Because we don't go out and set up a data stewardship program. We don't go out and hire and train chief data officers. We do provide technology, however, that enables organizations, whether they're in level 1 or in level 5, govern their data. And the three areas I'm going to talk about here today very quickly is data quality management. What do? We provide technology that allows organizations to manage their quality of data. But we'll get into more in detail what we mean by that. Metadata management. Does anybody in this room not know what the term metadata is? So metadata, what does that mean? It's information about your data. So I have a field called address. Okay, it looks like an address field. The metadata behind that field would describe that as being, this is address data for the city division of Istanbul or San Francisco, California. So it's describing what the data means. That's metadata. That's business metadata. There's also technical metadata. Technical metadata means, where's my data coming from? What's happening to the data throughout the process? We'll explain more how that's and why that's important from a data governance perspective. Master data management. Master data management is both a technology, but it's also a practice and a key pillar for data governance. Master data could include things like customer, product, securities, doctors, patients, suppliers. These are all the business information that you need. So think about it. We'll pick on customer data again. Master data of customers. Customer data can reside in more than one system. We know that. The question is, how many systems in your organization does customer data actually get created or updated? There's probably more than one. So how do you manage that? How do you govern the consistency and the single view? Data quality. We help organizations identify what is wrong with your data through a profiling solution. It allows you to discover the errors. It helps you to quantify what's wrong with the data, how often is it wrong, and where does it get impacted. 2, the data stewards, not IT. When you have to fix that address field because you're now collecting bad information and you need to fix it, that is a data quality rule that you'll be creating. And that process is something that not IT does, but a data steward would do. We provide visibility. Remember the last point I made around the diamond diagram is communication. You have to communicate how you're performing. So if your number one issue around your data was data quality, and that helped fuel investments in data governance, one way of providing transparency and communicate the investments you're making in people, process, policies, and technology is to provide dashboards and reports to your business users that their data they're receiving is either really good or really bad. And then on the ongoing governance aspect, we then provide a real-time monitoring capability that allows you to identify errors with your data and generate alerts to business people or data stewards or your executives that, hey, something's wrong. You need to do something about that. review the rules, or take a look at the data itself. These are the four main areas of what Informatica does. Nowhere in this picture do you see an ETL developer, a DBA, or an IT developer. It's not designed for IT. What does IT consume out of this? IT consumes the data quality rules that are created. And then you can use those rules to deploy into your ETL process if you're using Informatica for your data integration needs, or you can make that data quality rule available as a service. We can talk more about that offline. Now, metadata management. Again, two things we provide. One is a business glossary tool that allows data stewards to define the definition of data that's available to the business. What I meant by that earlier was address field is really address data about locations in Istanbul. So I would actually define the data definition, and what I'm doing is I'm defining the definitions in my metadata catalog, but what the business users will see in their report, they may not know what customer tier means. But I have someone in the back end and a data steward that's defining the definition. It will automatically open up a window to say, you told me you wanted to know more about customer tier. These are all the data elements in the systems in your organization that has the term customer tier. Think about it as a Google search capability for your data. And it will then provide information as to what the definition is. More importantly, who is the data steward? In this case, it's Beth. In our example earlier, it would say Subrata is the data steward for marketing data. He's the marketing data prince. Anything you want to know about marketing data, he is the guy to go to, right? That is how Informatica helps organizations answer those questions. What data do I have? Who do I go to? Okay. And then on the master data side, the challenge with master data management and governance is because there's really not a single good way of doing this across the enterprise today. If you're a bank, you might have a customer information file, and that might be really good for your retail bank. But what about the insurance side of the business, or investment banking, or asset management? Every business line has a different view of customer. How do you govern a single view of customer when you're trying to grow wallet share by selling more products and services? You can't do that. You can't do that in a data warehouse because data warehouses were never designed to feed that data back out to all the other business applications. And those business applications like a CRM system were never designed to share customer data across other systems. That is what master data management does to help govern the consistency of your critical business information across your company, whether it's employee data, supplier data, product data, and so forth. So Informatica provides capabilities in our master data management software to help you govern your master data, to deliver that single complete version of the truth to every system in your enterprise, whether it's in the cloud or on-premise. So some closing comments. Data governance sounds really interesting. Sounds complicated. It is. But let me tell you one thing about data governance that you should not do. Do not define a business case to solve every business problem and every data issue in your enterprise. I call that boiling the ocean. It's like me taking a match, going outside of the hotel and trying to boil the ocean across the street. It doesn't happen. Okay, start small. Start very small, because in this survey result, the question was, if you could begin data governance over again, and this was companies that have gone through multiple generations of data governance, of the options below, what would your top priority be based on lessons learned? Meaning, if you had to do it over again, what would you fix? 27% said gain stronger executive sponsorship and buy-in. 20% said have stronger cross-functional alignment, define a more clear-cut process and plan, stronger focus on support architecture enabling technologies. What this means is someone thought data governance was a good idea and never actually got executive buy-in, meaning they didn't have a business case defined. So if you're going to do data governance, really understand what it is you're trying to solve. The second survey is, what is the most effective measurement of the success of your data governance program? This is basically saying, how do you measure success? 43% said organizational effectiveness. What that really means is they were focused on either cutting costs or figuring out ways of improving how they did business. But we do, by the way, have the results of this survey available in English, If you are interested, please let the team know here from KOMTAŞ and from Informatica. We'll be more than happy to send that to you along with this presentation. I'm going to skip that one real quick because I do want to talk about the reasons why data governance does actually fail. And companies have actually failed in data governance. Big companies. Bank of America, I'll pick on them for a little bit. They hired a chief data officer, hired hundreds of people that they were data stewards, and over a 3-year period, they didn't do that well because they didn't get organizational alignment. They didn't have the payback necessary. The reasons why is because of that. If business executives are not convinced or they don't accept the fact that they actually own the data and they need better data and that these investments are important, you will fail. It will only be seen as something that someone thinks that it's a good idea. No payback. If you try to boil the ocean, there's no results. Start small. Start small, prove it out, and then grow the process. Cultural and political barriers. When I say politics, I'm not talking about governments per se. I'm talking about the politics internally. If business doesn't accept the fact that they own the data, think of the other side. I've seen organizations where the IT organization said, we own the data. Business doesn't own the data. Business people are dumb. They don't know anything about data. Well, that's not true. They do. Right? IT's job is to deliver that they need, the data that they need. So there are some barriers politically and culturally, especially if you're working for companies that work across multiple regions. Keep that in mind. It takes too long. Why? Because the scope was too big. Narrow your scope down to what problem you're trying to solve. It's too expensive. What that really means is you didn't have your business case to begin with. Because if you're trying to solve a multi-million-dollar problem, investing in something that has a pretty high price tag in terms of technology or people should have a positive ROI. Okay, so we talked about that, and I apologize why this is breaking up. But you have to have a business case. You have to have a clear strategy. Don't just do data governance because it sounds cool. You're trying to fix something with your data, and you're trying to benefit the business. Define what that is. Okay. So where do you begin? Assess the current state of your data. People say, oh, we have bad data. Do you? How do you know? Profile your data. Quantify it. Our partners from KOMTAŞ can help you there. Measure the impact of the data to your business. Because I don't have good address data, that's affecting sales by what %? Flip the argument. If I had better quality address data, how much more sales could I generate? There's your business case structure in place. Okay? Identify your data stewards. Who are the people in your organization that know what the data means and how it's used? Very important to do an inventory of your data experts. Define how you want your data to be. What do you want your address data to look like? What information do you really need to run a marketing campaign, as an example? Next, talk to your IT folks and understand what are they using today to manage data quality, as an example. If they're doing it by hand and writing custom scripts and using COBOL, they need some help. And that's going to need to be factored into your technology investment. Build that business case and set up a meeting with your business executives. Identify the results of your data quality audit, what the benefits would be if you had good data, and be able to communicate that business case. Then you start developing an execution plan. But again, my message is don't boil the ocean. Start small. Fix your address data today. Maybe tomorrow you fix your phone number data or your customer first name and last name data. But don't try to fix every data element that you find as being wrong. Monitor and then adjust. Because guess what, folks? Things will change. You'll find that other elements might actually affect your data issues and requirements. But that's where data governance becomes a self-living process. These are the steps. I didn't create these, by the way. I adopted this directly from the CDO council in the financial services industry. This is what the chief data officers out there are now preaching internally. Okay. So, if you are interested in learning more about data governance, Informatica actually sponsors a website called governyourdata.com. It has a self-assessment tool online that will walk you through questions to determine where you are in the 5 stages of data governance. And it will provide recommendations to show you what can you do to get from stage 2 to 3. So I would highly encourage you to take a look at that. You also have access to reports, studies, recommendations, the survey results that I showed. And there's an online blog of Informatica customers and partners, not Informatica employees, sharing their experiences around data governance. So it's a free service, by the way, and available to everyone. And unfortunately, it's written in English, so hopefully that won't be too much of a barrier. Okay. So with closing comments, data governance, it's interesting. Is it important? In some organizations and industries, it is. What's driving it? Most of the times is because of a data quality issue. Why does it fail? You don't have executive buy-in, you don't have a strong business case. Where do you start? Small. Don't boil the ocean. How does technology help? It helps automate the processes and enforce those policies. It doesn't create them for you. Okay. And lastly, Informatica and KOMTAŞ's role in this, we provide the technology, the services, and expertise to help your organizations deploy and grow your data governance practices. Thank you very much.